Greetings, fellow humans. I am Hugh.
And I am Man.
And together we are definitely not
two kobolds
in a trench coat. We enjoy human activities, such as paying taxes,
having existential crises,
and RPG horror stories. Let's see what we've got today.
First up, we have a player couple who demanded to have a size stat for plot reasons, and a player who storms out because the DM invalidated her character. A campaign that never started. Triggers, SA, and torture. By Reddit user Poyo Poyo Poyo. I didn't plan a session 0. I didn't plan for a session 0. 2 of the players were colleagues of mine. One was the girlfriend of one of them, and the other was my brother. So instead of a formal session 0, we opted for a longer period of discussion while I was preparing for the campaign. Characters. GM, that's yours truly. Long, that's one of my colleagues. We were at work. GM, this will be a peculiar setting. Magic is heavily controlled by the Inquisition, so children are screened for magic potential and are normally assimilated into the Inquisition ranks or at the service of a noble. This would be illegal but tolerated because it's one of the leverages that the Inquisition can use when the power is threatened. Long, I think that would be unfair because my girlfriend and I both play casters, so we would be at a disadvantage. GM, I don't think so. While it is true that you could face consequences for using magic, it is also true that you're not going to face other casters often and they're going to be less capable than you. What classes did you have in mind? Long, here's the thing. My girlfriend and I would like to play our usual characters. I would be an elf warlock and she would be an elf druid. Would that be okay? GM, well, it could be. Or perhaps we could tweak something a bit. I will need to see your character sheets to know their backstory. Long, I happen to have them right here. I read both their backstories. They only talked about how they met, and as both had canine physical features, they both got a tail and dog-like ears and wolf-like from him and fox-like for her. They decided that it was a sign from the gods, and they fell in love with each other. My spider senses were tingling, but it gave me a chance to insert them in such a world without changing anything.
You're not the only one whose spidey senses are tingling there. This is already giving me some alert vibes. I can understand having some anxieties around playing a caster in a world where magic is heavily regulated. After all, we've read stories about this sort of thing going horribly wrong and being done badly by the GM. However, this GM sounds very professional and it sounds like their concerns are maybe relating elsewhere or maybe on other limitations. I don't know, sounds a bit paranoid.
If you want to hear a story about it being done badly, you can click the tab in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. We will link it there. GM. They could work. The backstories don't explain anything about where they come from, so what if your girlfriend belongs to an elven nomadic tribe? This way, if the Inquisition wasn't on good terms with the nomads, it would be normal that they couldn't screen her as she was kept hidden. While you, being a warlock, means that you could have found a patron later than the screening. But how do you explain the animal-like features? Long. That's something that both my girlfriend and I want to explore during the campaign, and it's not negotiable. The characters don't know it, but we already have a story about it, and we're going to introduce it as the campaign progresses. GM. I don't like the phrase not negotiable about something I don't know. Let me think about it. Long. Okay, take your time.
And there goes the spidey senses again. I understand you as a player may have a trajectory on where your character's story is going to go, but something like why they have animal-like features is kind of inherent to their backstory and something the DM should absolutely be aware of in advance in order to work it into the world properly. You can absolutely write that your way, just got to work within the world and be checked with the DM first.
Yeah, it's not even spidey senses for me. It's blaring alarm bells when you start saying something as a non-negotiable when you won't even share with the DM. We all have things about our characters sometimes that we don't want to have to change, and a good DM won't make us change that. But saying that this is something that has to do with my character, and I'm not going to tell you, and it's not negotiable for them, that's a red flag.
At the end of the day, something like that would probably be okay with almost any DM. They just need to know how to work it into the world and make it work with the story.
And I feel like if you don't want to tell your DM because you're afraid they're going to nix it, maybe you shouldn't be having it as part of your character backstory. I had not checked their stats, so I gave another look at the sheets. It was a custom sheet that I'd never seen before, and something wasn't adding up. There was one more stat that I had never met in D&D, and they both had an 18 in it. GM: Hey, Long, what's this SZ stat? Long: Yeah, that's size. GM: Seriously? What is it? One of the characters is female. Long: For her, it's chest size. Man, he was serious. GM: Okay, but what is this stat used for? I can't think of any practical use. Do you have any guesses about what this is used for? There are no wrong answers.
Oh, I'm pretty sure we know where this is going, but let's let the OP tell it for themselves.
Long: A lot of stuff. For example, if I SA an enemy and it's used to calculate if I satisfy her enough so that she turns to our side, it can be used to tell how much pain someone feels when I them during torture, and is calculated if we get bonuses for doing the do during long rests or if we have to pay when going with prostitutes. GM: Okay, I don't think we will need it. It isn't that kind of campaign. Long: What's the matter? Is it gonna be an adult scene free campaign? GM: I don't have anything against adult stuff, but I don't want any spoken adult stuff if it's not in some way advancing the story. For conversion by SA, the base DC is going to be infinite, so I won't allow the throw. Both of your characters are lawful good, so I don't think that you are going to be torturing anyone anytime soon. And there is no bonus for adult scenes during long rests. If you want to be talking adult stuff with your girlfriend during the long rest, we can accommodate for a 5-minute pause so you can find somewhere secluded and go do all the adult stuff talk you want to do while the others wait. I had hoped that he would get the sarcasm. Long: I will have to ask her if she accepts those conditions. We will think about it. After a couple days, Long came and he asked me to add his brother to the campaign. He made a case for the importance of SA in D&D and proposed that at the end of every session, the players would vote on the GM performance and decide who was going to GM the next time. At this point, I voluntarily stepped down, and as no D&D is better than Canine SA D&D, I decided to remove myself from the campaign. I just wonder how they were going to explore their animal features, but I suppose I had a lot to do with the stuff going on under their tails. To my shame, there was an episode 2 to this. Do you need to hear about the second campaign that never started? I don't know. Perhaps for catharsis.
Okay, so all this is horrible enough, but how the hell do you come and argue to your DM about the importance of SA being in D&D? What the hell is wrong with you? How does this person have a girlfriend? Something's gone horribly wrong.
I mean, at least they're in a relationship together and not being pests to other people, I suppose, but yeah.
I mean, the fact that we're only hearing from the boyfriend in this does raise some concerns about the safety of the girlfriend in this relationship and how complicit she is in this, or whether she too is a victim of it the way he is. I don't know, can't really assume much just from the fact that we only hear from him.
I mean, unfortunately, there's pick-me girls that will go along with this stuff because they're not like the other girls and they're cool with stuff like that. Unfortunately, something tells me that the girlfriend was completely on board with this. Also, I just love that Long had to get his brother involved in all of this and then was like, and then we're gonna take a vote and see if we want you to DM next session. It's chaos, dude. Not even just from that's weird, but that's chaos waiting to happen.
Yeah, imagine DMing and at the end of the day, you're gonna get rated like you were in a diving contest by your players. And then the chaos on the story, like you say, is just gonna be ridiculous. How can you have a coherent narrative if the DM is changing every session?
OP, you did the right thing for running for the hills. I am really curious, just morbidly curious about what happens in episode 2 of this.
I'm also concerned about how awkward it's gonna get in the break room at work. Imagine you go to get a coffee and this guy's in there. How the hell do you deal with that?
Yeah, I don't know how I could work with somebody who tried to make a case for SA and D&D and how important that is.
They're probably a walking HR complaint waiting to happen. It's another DM controlled my character, Rage Quit, Good Hair Edition by Izayori Sakuya. Many moons ago when I was getting back into IRL tabletop after the coup, I joined a local game store. And now normal service will resume. We had a player whose PC had incredibly long hair and stored all their stuff in said hair. This isn't simple Fabio hair. This is stuff that makes Bayonetta weep at night. This wasn't unusual because someone had a fighter whose sword was in a dakimakura. What was unusual was when another player started asking about the rules for storing stuff in their hair. This turned into a table-spanning discussion for what had to be 6 minutes before the DM put his foot down, said something to the effect of, "Guys, this isn't relevant to the story. Let's move along." Wrong answer, even though he didn't say it in a mean way.
This is very typical, like, getting off course D&D discussion when somebody comes up with a weird, wacky thing. They're like, so, what are the mechanics of storing stuff in your hair, and how much can you store? I can 100% seeing that being a discussion in my tabletop. Absolutely, I love that.
That's potentially a lot of fun, but it's when it's become a 6-minute discussion amongst every player for ages, that's a bit weird and off-putting, and the DM definitely should be moving that along. In fact, this is some mechanic that probably should have been discussed with the DM at the beginning. You would have thought it was something that would have been discussed with the DM in a session 0, or even when it first came up, probably during an earlier session. However, this should be a simple thing of the DM saying, okay, there's a carry limit, let me quickly work it out. And that would be that.
Yeah, I do like the idea of having that as a character quirk of, like, I store stuff in my hair. That's sort of like Fern. Like, Fern stores stuff in Critical Role Campaign 3. Fern stores stuff in her fur, like, all over the place. And I think she has a pouch and everything, too. Which, again, it's just a fun, quirky flavor thing. It's not, like, a serious, integral to your character's situation. It should just be, like, a little extra salt and pepper, you know what I mean?
Leia stares at GM for the longest time. When we get to her turn, she's still staring. We all think it's a joke because she did the same thing to an in-universe conversation with the rogue trying to have a hair down with her, until she doesn't respond to anyone for another few minutes. She finally gets up, says the GM invalidated her character, and leaves in a huff. We're even more silent. The rest of the session went well enough though. Later I found out another guy at another table had quit because she tried to fight him, over Discord thankfully, over not giving the players sufficient warning that entering a specific area with high-level monsters could kill them. The GM in question specifically warned the group at the start. He wasn't even DMing too. Apparently she was reading the IC posts.
That's a weird reaction to have, because it's not like the GM was saying your hair isn't relevant to anything. He was just saying this discussion around hair is not relevant to what we're currently facing at this moment. And she gets up and is like, you invalidated my character, and just runs off. Like, okay.
Yeah, the GM was simply doing their job and moving the campaign along when the players got a bit too derailed for too long. That's what the GM does. They're not supposed to be a buzzkill, but they are supposed to keep the campaign moving. And it's not like they said the hair was a stupid idea or anything ridiculous. They just said having this in-depth discussion isn't relevant. Let's move along. They could have at least used the opportunity to properly establish a carry limit, assuming it hadn't been done so before. Maybe that might have helped, but something tells me this player was not going to be that reasonable about it.
Yeah, I feel like this player was maybe a little bit on the young side, given that she also kind of had a freak out about getting into a combat situation that she got warned about that kind of screams of being on the immature side.
Honestly, between this kind of hair and the craziness, I'm getting serious Yukiko vibes from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Is this her IRL?
If you're short, you better start hiding now. Coming for the short kings. Hey Hugh.
Yes, ma'am?
What forest animal helps the druid get that nice green color for their robe?
I don't know. Which one?
A dire wolf.
And with that, we have definitely not been
Two kobolds in a trench coat.
Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and make the necessary sacrifices to Tiamat. We'll see you next time.